The real reason behind Aston Martin's failure. Aston Martin have been the surprise package at the start of the season, but as the season progressed, Aston Martin's performance has regressed. With many left wondering why the sudden dip in form, it seems the answer to that question is a flaw in the very thing that was implemented to improve them. With the gap between Alonso and Stroll almost as big as Verstappen and Perez's, it's a question whether Aston Martin can finish P2 this year, and if not, what is coming in the near future for the Silverstone-based outfit. Fernando Alonso sparked excitement in the early races as he unexpectedly became Red Bull's main competitor, even nearing victory in the Monaco Grand Prix. However, after achieving 6 podium finishes in the first 8 races, including second-place finishes in Monaco and Canada, his success began to wane. Since the Austrian GP, Alonso's top results have been 5th-place finishes, with McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari stepping up to claim the podiums behind Red Bull. This shift in performance has aroused significant curiosity, and Alonso himself has suggested that it may be connected to the alteration of tyre construction that Pirelli implemented starting from the British GP. Aston Martin's top management has rejected this idea, proposing instead that the change might be related to an upgrade package they introduced at the Canadian Grand Prix, as this package may have initiated some characteristic alterations that the team failed to address right away. The team principal, Mike Krack, recently referred to these changes as side effects which were not observable in Montreal due to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve's low downforce drag nature. However, these effects became more apparent when more load was needed in subsequent races. As performance director Tom McCullough explained, "You always try to add base performance, but you very rarely can add it without any characteristic change. So there's always that you're trying to understand." A more encouraging performance in Belgium, as Alonso came home in 5th place, left the team feeling that it had turned the corner in its understanding of the car and could now look forward to a better second half of the season. "The data looks positive from what we have seen so far," said Krack. "We look to be more competitive than recently, but rivals in the paddock have suggested that there is another more intriguing answer as to why Aston Martin's form changed, and it relates to a bit of a flexi wing clampdown from the FIA. Recently, the motor racing governing body has been paying particularly close attention to the construction of front wings this year to ensure that teams are not using clever solutions to benefit from flexible components. The FIA and teams have long been aware that if a team can design a front wing that is strong enough when stationary to pass the pull-down test conducted in the garage, but can flex down in a controlled manner at speed out on track, then a decent chunk of performance can be unleashed. This has been a constant battleground between teams and the FIA, and an issue that is unlikely to ever go away, as it is impossible to make wings that are 100% rigid. It is understood earlier this season, the FIA ramped up its analysis of various designs and expressed some unease about the construction of several front wings, which it suspected could be flexing more than it felt was necessary. Although the wings passed the pull-down tests that check on flexibility, and there were never any suggestions that teams were running illegal cars, any design that allowed the wings to flex at speed could have been deemed to be in breach of Article 3.2.2 of the technical regulations. This rule states all aerodynamic components or bodywork influencing the car's aerodynamic performance must be rigidly secured and immobile with respect to their frame of reference defined in Article 3.3. Furthermore, these components must produce a uniform, solid, hard, continuous, impervious surface under all circumstances. A flexible front wing would bring notable benefits to teams in it being able to run in a higher downforce configuration for corners, but then flexing down at speed on the straights to reduce drag. Onboard footage from Alonso's car in the early races definitely seemed to point to Aston Martin being able to run very high wing angles, and there being a notable flex in the wing as it hit top speed on the straights. It is understood that the FIA took action around the time of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and informally advised a number of teams about its desire to see changes to avoid any potential trouble at subsequent races. It is unclear exactly when such modifications Decisions were expected to be made, however, as teams are often given some leeway to change designs in such circumstances. What is clear, though, is that by the time of the Spanish GP, Aston Martin's performance characteristics seemed to change, with its low-speed and medium-speed performance slipping back in particular. The team has neither confirmed nor denied that it was one of several teams that had to make modifications to its front wing, but sources with good knowledge of the situation have revealed that Aston Martin was one of the teams that had to make changes. What's interesting is that this theory ties in nicely with Kravitz quizzing Krack about a possible FIA intervention on Aston Martin's front wing, and it seems the paddock rumor is that this is the cause of their loss of performance. If true, it's a shame that it's happened mid-season, but given it's something that was intervened on mid-season previously, and it happened during a title race in 2021, so there is precedent and the teams would have been able to foresee this before going down a certain route. Front wings were flexing a lot last year too, but nothing seemed to be done about it, and perhaps Aston Martin found a really extreme solution for this year. The precise modifications made by Aston Martin remain unclear, but a detailed analysis of its front wing suggests a change in approach around the time of the FIA's enforcement actions. The revised and more robust construction emerged from R&D for 2024, and Pirelli fast-tracked its introduction for the British GP weekend in order to deal with increasing downforce levels without raising minimum pressures. While the general consensus in the paddock was that the change didn't make much difference to the pecking order, Alonso is convinced that it has had an impact. "We are 1/10 from McLaren, so it's not as bad as maybe the result looks," he said. "But yeah, we need to improve. There's no doubt we made a step backwards in the last few races, and everyone did a step forward. Also, it is a coincidence that when the new Pirelli tyres came in Silverstone, there were a couple of teams that were struggling more, and a couple of teams that are very happy with the car now. It's not only us. I think Red Bull has clearly been hit with those tyres. They've been 1-2 in every qualifying, 1-2 in every race, and now they are not even on pole position. Checo Perez is struggling to be in the top 10. At Silverstone, I think Max Verstappen was only 3 seconds in front of Lando Norris in the race, so I see things a little bit abnormal since Silverstone." Asked if his thoughts on the tyres were motivated by the stopwatch or his feelings in the car, he said, "Both. I think you can feel the car a little bit different with the tyres, but as I said, it is difficult sometimes to be neutral. So jury's out on how much the tyres are affecting Aston Martin's performance, but Red Bull has started looking more human in Silverstone and in Spa. But right now, the sample size for us spectators is not much to make any definite conclusion." Another reason for Aston Martin's dip of form, besides these technical issues the AMR23 is facing, could be the fact that the team has also been moving factories, which is always going to be a distraction. Without this burden, other teams have been able to get past Aston Martin. Also, I do wonder if Lance's pre-season injuries are continuing to be an issue, and while he'll never be a Max or Fernando, he is better than his last few race weekends suggest. The bright side here is Alonso going into the summer break with only the Red Bull drivers ahead of him in the championship. Logically, it therefore follows that Aston Martin have been competitive enough over the opening races to hold second in the constructors' standings, but instead, they are third behind Mercedes. Should Stroll not get it together, Aston Martin face serious risk of dropping even further in the pecking order. Do you think Aston Martin could drop out and finish behind their rivals this season? Or is there still time for them to reorganize and push harder after the summer break? Let us know down in the comments below, and we will see you in the next one.